The great hall of the Dominion Council stretched for nearly a mile. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath the ancient stone arches. Thousands of Kethral officials sat in rising circles around the central platform, their scaled bodies reflecting the blue light of holographic displays. This was the heart of an empire that had conquered 400 star systems. This was where the fate of entire species was decided. Commander Vrexenal stood at the center platform, his silver uniform decorated with medals from a dozen successful planetary conquests. He was tall even for a Kethral, and his yellow eyes burned with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Behind him floated a holographic image of a small blue planet. Council members, Vrex now began, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. I present to you our next target. The locals call it Earth. The image rotated slowly, showing green continents and vast oceans. Data streams appeared beside it, listing population figures, resource estimates, and technological assessments. 8 billion inhabitants, Vrexnal continued. A single species called humans. They have achieved basic space travel. Nothing more than chemical rockets and a few primitive stations orbiting their world. Their military technology is laughable. They still use combustion engines and projectile weapons. They have nuclear capability, but their delivery systems are slow and easily intercepted. Murmurs of approval rippled through the council. This sounded like an easy conquest. The Dominion had crushed far more advanced civilizations. The planet is rich in resources, Vrexnal said. Fresh water, fertile soil, abundant minerals. More importantly, the humans themselves will make excellent laborers. They are adaptable, numerous, and their bodies can survive in a wide range of conditions. I propose we launch an invasion fleet within the month. High Counselor Methrix leaned forward in her elevated seat. She was ancient by Kethral standards. Her scales faded to pale gray, but her mind remained sharp. What resistance do you expect, Commander? Minimal, High Counselor. They will likely attempt nuclear strikes against our fleet, which our shields will absorb without difficulty. Ground resistance may last a few weeks. I estimate full planetary control within 60 days. And casualties? On our side? Perhaps a few thousand. On theirs? Vrexenal smiled, showing rows of pointed teeth. As many as necessary to ensure compliance. The council members nodded approvingly. This was how the Dominion operated. This was how they had built their empire across the stars. Find the weak, crush the resistant, enslave the survivors. High Counselor Methrix raised her hand to call for a vote when the great doors at the far end of the hall burst open. Every head turned. Guards rushed toward the disturbance, weapons drawn. But they stopped when they saw who had entered. An old Kethral walked slowly down the central aisle. His scales were not just faded but scarred, marked with burns that had never fully healed. He wore no uniform, just simple gray clothing. His left arm was missing below the elbow. He walked with a limp that spoke of old injuries and older pain. Sirveth, someone whispered. The name spread through the chamber like a disease. Commander Vrexenal's confident expression flickered. He knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Sirveth had commanded a scouting mission to Earth's solar system nearly 40 years ago. He had returned alone, his ship damaged, his crew dead, his mind shattered. He had spent years in psychiatric facilities, babbling about things he claimed to have seen. Most considered him a cautionary tale about the dangers of deep space isolation. The old alien reached the central platform and stood before the council, his one good arm trembling at his side. You cannot go to Earth, Sirveth said. His voice was quiet, but the hall's acoustics carried it to every listener. It is a trap, Vrexnal laughed. The sound echoed harshly through the chamber. Guards, remove this fool. He has no authority to address the council, but High Counselor Methrix raised her hand. Wait, let him speak. The council recognizes Sirveth, former scout commander. You have words for us, old one? Sirveth looked up at her with eyes that had seen too much. I went to that system. I scanned that planet. Everything looked exactly as Commander Vrexnal describes. Primitive, weak, easy prey. He paused, swallowing hard. We thought the same thing. We were wrong. Your ship suffered a navigation malfunction. Vrexnal interrupted. Your crew died from decompression. You drifted for months before rescue. The medical reports clearly state that your memories of that mission are unreliable. The medical reports were written by people who did not want to believe what I told them, Sirveth replied. There was no malfunction. We were allowed to leave. We were allowed to return with a warning. A warning? High Counselor Methrix leaned forward with interest. From whom? From the humans. Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. Thousands of Kethral officials found the idea hilarious. The primitive species warning the mighty Dominion? Absurd. But Sirveth did not laugh. He did not even smile. They knew we were there, he continued, his voice cutting through the mockery. They knew the moment we entered their system. They watched us scan their planet. They listened to our communications. And then they spoke to us. The laughter began to fade, replaced by uncomfortable silence. They told us that Earth was not what it appeared. They told us that they had been watching the galaxy for a long time, learning about species like the Dominion. They told us that they had prepared for visitors like us. Sirveth's voice grew stronger, more urgent. They said they would allow us to leave and deliver a message. They said that any fleet sent to conquer Earth would never return. And they said... He paused, his body shaking. They said they hoped we would listen. They said they did not want to do what they would have to do if we came. Fantasies, Vrexnel declared. The ravings of a broken mind. High Counselor, I insist this disruption end immediately. If they were so powerful, Counselor Drenvax called out from the upper circles. Why did they not simply destroy your ship? Why let you go? Because they wanted us to have a choice, Sirveth answered. They wanted us to choose not to come. They wanted to give us the chance to be better than what we are. More laughter, though it sounded forced now. I served this Dominion for 60 years, Sirveth said, turning slowly to address the entire chamber. I conquered 12 worlds in its name. I believed in our strength, our destiny, our right to rule. But I am telling you now, with whatever credibility my service has earned, that Earth is not a prize to be claimed. It is a trap waiting to be sprung. The humans want us to come. They have wanted it for a very long time, and if we give them what they want, we will discover that everything we believed about our power was a lie. High Counselor Methrix studied the old alien for a long moment. Then she turned to Vrexnal. Commander, what is your response? Vrexnal straightened his uniform, his confidence fully restored. My response is that Sirveth is a damaged veteran who deserves our sympathy, not our attention. His ship's records were corrupted. His crew died from documented mechanical failures. He spent 5 years in treatment for severe psychological trauma. With respect to his past service, nothing he says can be trusted. He stepped forward, addressing the Council directly. We have conquered 200 species. 200 worlds have fallen before our fleets. We have crushed civilizations that built weapons capable of destroying stars. And this Council is considering fear of primitives who cannot even leave their own planet reliably. He gestured dismissively at Sirveth. This is what defeat looks like. This is what happens when fear replaces courage. I will not let one broken old fool stop the Dominion from claiming what is rightfully ours. The Council erupted in applause. Vrexnal had spoken to their pride, their certainty, their unshakable faith in Dominion supremacy. High Counselor Methrix nodded slowly. The Council will vote. All in favor of authorizing the Earth invasion fleet? Thousands of hands rose. All opposed? Not a single hand. The motion carries. Commander Vrexnal, you have your fleet. May your conquest bring glory to the Dominion. Guards moved forward to escort Sirveth from the chamber. He did not resist. He did not protest. He simply looked at Vrexnal with something that might have been pity. You were warned, he said quietly. Remember that. When you see what waits for you, remember that you were warned, and you chose not to listen. Vrexnal watched the old alien being led away. For just a moment, something cold touched his heart. Then he pushed the feeling aside and turned to receive the congratulations of his fellow officers. 1 month later, the invasion fleet launched. 40 dreadnoughts, 200 support vessels, 500,000 soldiers, the largest military force the Dominion had assembled in a generation. All aimed at one small blue planet. In a quiet room in the Veterans Hospital, Sirveth sat by his window and watched the fleet's lights disappear into the darkness of space. Tears ran down his scarred face. They wanted to be better, he whispered to no one. The humans said they hoped we would be better. But we never learn. We never listen. He closed his eyes and remembered the voice that had spoken to him 40 years ago. Calm, patient, sad. We will be waiting, it had said. We hope you do not come. But if you do, we will be ready. We have been ready for a very long time. The fleet was gone now, carrying 500,000 souls toward a fate they could not imagine. And somewhere across the vast emptiness of space, on a small blue planet that appeared so weak and so inviting, something ancient and patient began to wake. The trap had been set for 200 years. Now, finally, someone was about to walk into it. The journey to Earth took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of faster-than-light travel through the empty spaces between stars. 6 weeks of drills and preparations and briefings about the primitive species they were about to conquer. By the time the Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, every soldier and officer aboard believed they were about to achieve the easiest victory in the Empire's history. Commander Vrexnal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the main display as it populated with data about the system. 8 planets orbiting a single yellow star. The third planet from the star was their target. Even from this distance, it looked peaceful, beautiful, even. A marble of blue and white and green hanging in the darkness. Initial scans complete, Commander, reported Officer Kethra from her station. No orbital defense platforms detected. No weapons satellites. No military installations on any of the system's moons. She paused, checking her readings twice. They appear to have a single space station in low orbit. Very small. Perhaps a dozen occupants. What about their fleet? Vrexnal asked. They have no fleet, Commander. A few small craft capable of moving between their planet and their moon. Nothing else. Laughter rippled through the bridge crew. This was even easier than they had expected. Vrexnal allowed himself a small smile. And their planetary defenses? Scanning now. Kethra worked her controls, directing the fleet's sensors toward Earth itself. They have nuclear missile installations, several hundred across multiple continents. Launch capability appears limited to atmospheric delivery. None are aimed at space. Because they do not know we are here, Vrexnal said confidently. Or if they do, they have no means to threaten us. He turned to address his bridge crew. This is what happens when you listen to the fears of broken old fools. There is nothing here. No trap, no secret weapon. Just primitives who will soon learn what it means to face the Dominion. The fleet moved inward, passing the outer gas giants without incident. They crossed the asteroid belt. They passed the 4th planet, a dead red world that the humans had apparently placed a few small robots on. As they drew closer to Earth, the scans became more detailed. 8 billion life signs, thousands of cities, transportation networks covering every continent, communication signals filling every frequency, and not a single weapon capable of threatening a Dominion warship. Commander, Kethra said, the humans have detected us. We are receiving transmissions from their planet. Multiple languages. They appear to be confused. Let them be confused, Vrexnal replied. Begin standard conquest protocol. Select a coastal city of moderate size. We will demonstrate our power, then demand surrender. The bombardment ship Swift Judgment broke formation and descended toward Earth. It was a vessel designed specifically for planetary assault, carrying enough firepower to reduce a city to ash in seconds. Its captain, a veteran of 30 conquests, guided it toward a city on the eastern coast of one of Earth's larger continents. Vrexnal watched the approach on his display. The bombardment ship entered the planet's atmosphere, glowing red as it descended. Below it, millions of humans were about to learn that they were no longer alone in the universe. They were about to learn that the universe was not friendly. The Swift Judgment reached optimal firing altitude. Its weapons charged. Its captain prepared to give the order. Then the ship stopped. Not slowed, not turned. Simply stopped, as if time itself had frozen around it. Report, Vrexnal demanded, his voice suddenly tense. Unknown, Commander. The Swift Judgment is not responding to communications. All systems appear to be locked. The ship is not moving. On the display, Vrexnal watched in disbelief as the bombardment ship began to rise. Slowly, gently, it moved backward through the atmosphere, climbing higher and higher until it reached the edge of space. Then it simply hung there, motionless, Get me Captain Drenvax, Vrexnell ordered. We cannot, Commander. All communication with the Swift Judgment has ceased. The ship appears intact, but nothing responds. Vrexnell stared at the display. A cold feeling was growing in his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Send 10 ships, he said. Attack simultaneously from different angles. Whatever they used on the Swift Judgment cannot work on multiple targets at once. 10 bombardment ships dove toward Earth. 10 ships loaded with enough firepower to destroy every city on the planet. 10 ships crewed by veterans who had never known defeat. All 10 stopped at exactly the same altitude. All 10 rose gently back into space. All 10 fell silent. Now the bridge crew was no longer laughing. Now they were looking at each other with wide eyes and trembling hands. Commander, Kethra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Something is happening on the planet's surface. The display shifted to show Earth's oceans. In hundreds of locations across the planet, the water was churning. Something was rising from beneath the waves. Structures that had not been there before, or perhaps structures that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for exactly this moment. They were enormous, towers of dark metal that rose miles into the sky, platforms that spread across the water, like islands being born, networks of light connecting them, pulsing with energy that the Dominion's sensors could not identify. That is impossible, Vrexnell breathed. We scanned the entire planet. There was nothing beneath those oceans. Nothing. We scanned what they wanted us to scan, Kethra replied. We saw what they wanted us to see. A new signal appeared on the communication display. Audio only. A single transmission directed at the Dominion fleet. Vrexnell hesitated. He had never hesitated before in his life, but something in his blood was screaming at him not to answer. Something ancient and primal was telling him to run. He opened the channel. The voice that spoke was calm, gentle, female, and it spoke in perfect Kethral, without accent, without error. You were warned. You came anyway. Now we need to have a conversation about your empire's future. Who are you? Vrexnell demanded. What have you done to my ships? My name is Director Chen. I represent the people of Earth. As for your ships, they are unharmed. Their crews are unharmed. We have simply taken control of their systems. All of their systems. We did this the moment they entered our atmosphere. That is impossible. Our ships have the most advanced security in the galaxy. Your ships have the most advanced security you have ever encountered. Director Chen corrected. That is not the same thing. Vrexnell gripped the arms of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. You are bluffing. You cannot control our entire fleet. Can I not? Every light on the bridge flickered. Every display went dark for exactly 1 second, then returned. And when they returned, every screen showed the same thing, a symbol that Vrexnell did not recognize, a blue circle containing an image of Earth, surrounded by stars. That was a demonstration, Director Chen continued. I now have access to every system on every ship in your fleet. Life support, weapons, navigation, communications. I have had this access since you crossed the boundary of our solar system. I simply chose not to use it until now. You are lying, Commander Vrexnell. Your personal medical file indicates you have a heart condition in your secondary cardiovascular system. You take medication for it every morning. The medication is stored in the cabinet above your sleeping quarters, 3rd shelf, behind the pain relievers you use for your chronic back pain. Director Chen paused. Shall I continue? Or do you believe me now? Vrexnell said nothing. He could not speak. He could barely breathe. 40 years ago, we allowed one of your scouts to leave our system with a warning. We hoped you would listen. We hoped you would choose not to come. You came anyway, because your empire has never learned that strength is not the only thing that matters. The voice remained calm, almost sad. We did not want this, Commander. We truly did not. But you gave us no choice. What do you want? Vrexnell finally managed to ask. I want to tell you a story. A true story about your empire and what it has done to the galaxy. After that, I want to offer you a choice. A real choice. Not the false choice between conquest and death that your Dominion offers its victims. And if I refuse to listen, then 500,000 of your people will die in the next 60 seconds. And the Dominion will lose 40 dreadnoughts without firing a single shot. I would prefer not to do this. But I will if you force me to. Vrex now looked around his bridge. He saw terror in the eyes of his crew. He saw the frozen ships on his display. He saw the massive structures rising from Earth's oceans, glowing with power that made the Dominion's mightiest weapons look like children's toys. He thought of Sirveth, the broken old fool who had warned them, the survivor who had spoken of a trap. I will listen, Vrexnal said. Good, Director Chen replied. That is the first wise decision your empire has made in a very long time. Now, let me tell you what the humans really are. Let me tell you how long we have been waiting for you. And let me tell you why everything you believe about your power is about to change. The structures on Earth pulsed with light, and in the darkness of space, surrounded by a fleet he no longer controlled, Commander Vrexnal began to understand that his invasion had not failed. It had succeeded exactly as the humans wanted. The trap had been perfect, and he had walked directly into it, carrying 500,000 soldiers with him. Now he could only wait to learn what the humans wanted from the prey they had caught. Director Chen's hologram appeared on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest 3 hours after her first transmission. She was smaller than Vrexnal had expected. Humans were smaller than most species the Dominion had conquered. She had dark hair streaked with gray, lines on her face that spoke of age and experience, and eyes that held no fear at all. She stood in the center of the bridge, her image perfectly solid, as if she were truly present. Around her, the Kethral crew watched with a mixture of terror and fascination. None of them had ever seen anything like her. None of them had ever been so completely helpless. Commander Vrexnal, Director Chen began. I want you to understand something before we proceed. We are not doing this because we enjoy it. We are not doing this because we hate your species. We are doing this because 200 years ago, we discovered that the galaxy was full of civilizations like yours, and we decided that we would not be their victims. Vrexnal stood rigid, his hands clasped behind his back. Pride would not allow him to show fear. Even now, you claim to have known about us for 200 years. How is that possible? Our scouts found no evidence of advanced technology on your planet, because we did not want them to find it. Director Chen gestured, and a holographic timeline appeared in the air beside her. 212 years ago, one of our deep space telescopes detected signals from your empire. Not intentional communications, just the background noise of a technological civilization. We began listening. We began learning. The timeline showed dates, events, milestones. Vrexnal recognized none of them, but he understood their meaning. We discovered that the galaxy was not the peaceful place we had hoped. Director Chen continued. We found evidence of the Dominion. We found evidence of other empires like yours, species that expanded through conquest, that enslaved or destroyed anyone weaker than themselves. We realized that if we announced our presence, if we reached out in friendship as we had always dreamed of doing, we would be destroyed. So you hid? Vrexnal said. So we prepared. Director Chen's expression hardened slightly. There is a difference. Hiding is passive. Preparation is active. We knew that eventually, someone would find us. We knew that we could not fight a war across interstellar distances, not with the technology we had at the time. So we decided to make sure the war came to us, on our terms, in our territory. The hologram changed, showing Earth as it had appeared to Dominion scanners. Primitive, weak, inviting. Every signal we broadcast into space was calculated. Every piece of technology we allowed to be visible was chosen specifically to make us look like easy prey. We wanted conquerors to find us. We wanted them to see what we wanted them to see. We wanted them to send their fleets here, where we would be ready for them. You baited us, Vrexnal said, like hunters baiting a trap for animals. Yes, and we are sorry for that. Truly sorry. We would have preferred a galaxy where such deception was not necessary, but we did not create that galaxy. The Dominion and species like you created it. We simply learned to survive in it. Director Chen walked closer to Vrexnal, her holographic feet making no sound on the metal floor. The technology you see now, the structures rising from our oceans, the power that holds your fleet motionless. This is not everything we have. This is simply what we have chosen to reveal. We have been advancing in secret for 2 centuries while broadcasting an image of primitiveness to the galaxy. We have developed sciences your empire cannot imagine. We have built weapons you cannot comprehend. And we have done all of this not because we wanted to conquer anyone, but because we wanted to have a choice when someone came to conquer us. Why are you telling me this? Frexnell asked. If you have such power, why not simply destroy us? Why explain anything? Director Chen smiled. But it was a sad smile. Because destruction was never our goal, Commander. Understanding is our goal. Change is our goal. She gestured again, and the hologram shifted to show something new. A planet Vrexnal recognized immediately. Kethral Prime. His homeworld. 300 years ago, your species developed faster than light travel. Within 50 years, you had begun conquering neighboring systems. Within a century, you had built an empire spanning dozens of worlds. You told yourselves that this was natural. You told yourselves that the strong were meant to rule the weak. You told yourselves that conquest was the only path to survival in a hostile universe. Images flickered across the display. Species Vrexnal recognized. Species the Dominion had conquered. Some had been enslaved. Some had been exterminated. Some had simply been absorbed until nothing remained of their original culture. You were not always this way, Director Chen said. Before you reached the stars, your species had art, philosophy, dreams of peaceful exploration. But somewhere along the way, you decided that the universe was too dangerous for such things. You decided that the only way to be safe was to make everyone else afraid of you, and so you became the very thing you feared. Vrexnal wanted to argue. He wanted to defend his people, his empire, his entire way of life. But the images kept coming. Burning cities, enslaved populations, children taken from their parents to be raised as servants of the Dominion. He had seen these things himself. He had ordered some of them. We have been watching your empire for a long time, Director Chen continued. We have recordings from every world you have conquered. Not propaganda. Not human interpretations. Actual recordings made by your own forces, your own surveillance systems. We know exactly what the Dominion has done in its 3 centuries of expansion. Every atrocity, every betrayal, every broken promise. Why does this matter? Vrexnal asked, his voice rough. You have won. You have our fleet. What difference does history make? Because we are not going to destroy you, Commander. Vrexnal looked up, confusion breaking through his carefully maintained composure. What? The Dominion has killed billions. Your species has caused more suffering than most humans can comprehend. By any measure of justice, you deserve to be wiped out. Every ship in your fleet deserves to be reduced to atoms. And we have the power to do exactly that. Director Chen moved to stand directly in front of Vrexnal, her holographic eyes meeting his. But we are not going to do it. We are not going to kill 500,000 of your people. We are not going to destroy your empire through force. We are going to do something much harder. We are going to give you a choice. What choice? The choice to change. The choice to become something better than what you are. The choice your empire has never given any of its victims. Vrexnal stared at her. Of all the things he had expected from this encounter, this was not among them. Mercy? From a species they had come to enslave? You could crush us, he said slowly. You could end the Dominion forever. You could become the new masters of the galaxy. Why would you not take that power? Director Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Because we remember being small. We remember being afraid. We remember looking up at the stars and wondering if we were alone. Hoping we were not. Dreaming of friends we might find among the distant lights. She paused. We built this trap not to destroy whoever walked into it, but to finally have the power to choose something other than destruction. We wanted to be strong enough to be merciful. Does that make sense to you? Vrexnal did not answer. He could not answer. Nothing in his experience, nothing in the entire history of the Dominion, had prepared him for an enemy who refused to act like an enemy. We are going to show you what your empire has really done, Director Chen said. Not to punish you, not to humiliate you, but so that you can understand why change is necessary. After that, we are going to offer you terms. Fair terms. Terms that will dismantle your empire not through conquest, but through liberation. Every species you have enslaved will be freed. Every world you have taken will be returned. And your people, the Kethral, will have to face the truth of what they have done and decide what kind of species they want to be going forward. And if we refuse, then we will do what we must to protect the innocent. But we would rather not. We would rather believe that your species is capable of being better than its worst actions. We would rather believe that the Kethral who once dreamed of peaceful exploration are still there, somewhere, beneath the conquerors they became. Director Chen's hologram began to fade. Think about what I have said, Commander. Talk to your officers. Consider the choice before you. In 12 hours, I will return, and we will begin showing you the truth about your empire. After that, everything changes. She disappeared, leaving Vrexanal alone with his crew and his thoughts. Around him, officers whispered to each other in confusion and fear. The fleet remained frozen in space, held by power they could not fight, and somewhere in the back of Vrexanal's mind, a memory stirred. Sirveth's words in the council chamber. They wanted to give us the chance to be better than what we are. For the first time in his life, Commander Vrexnal began to wonder if being better was actually possible, and if it was, what that would cost. The recordings began at midnight, Earth time, on every ship in the Dominion fleet, on every screen and display. The humans broadcast the truth, not human propaganda, not interpretations or accusations, simply recordings from the Dominion's own archives, gathered over decades by human agents who had penetrated deeper into Kethral systems than anyone had ever imagined. Vrexnal sat in his quarters and watched. He had no choice. Every screen showed the same thing. Every speaker carried the same sounds. There was no escaping what his empire had done. He saw the conquest of Thessar Prime. He had been a young officer during that campaign, proud of his role in the victory. Now he watched recordings he had never seen. Civilians rounded up and sorted like merchandise. Families separated. The elderly and sick eliminated as inefficient. Children taken to processing centers where they would be raised to serve the Dominion. Their own culture erased from their memories. He saw the suppression of the Vendra uprising. He had not participated in that campaign, but he had celebrated when news of victory reached the fleet. Now he watched Dominion soldiers firing into crowds of unarmed protesters. He watched mass executions. He watched a species fighting desperately for freedom and being crushed without mercy. He saw recordings from slave worlds. Populations worked until they collapsed. Medical care denied to the unproductive. Punishments delivered for crimes as small as speaking one's native language. Hour after hour, the recordings played. 300 years of conquest, 300 years of suffering. Every atrocity documented in the Dominion's own records, hidden away in classified archives that no ordinary citizen would ever see. On other ships, Vrexnal knew, the same thing was happening. 500,000 Dominion soldiers were being forced to confront the reality of what they served. Some would refuse to believe. Some would find ways to justify what they saw. But others, he suspected, were feeling the same cold horror that was growing in his own chest. He had always known the Empire was harsh. He had always known that conquest required difficult decisions. But he had told himself that it was necessary. He had told himself that the Dominion brought order to chaos, civilization to primitives, purpose to the purposeless. The recordings showed him the lie. The species they had conquered had not been primitive. They had had their own civilizations, their own achievements, their own dreams. The Dominion had not brought order. It had brought destruction dressed in the language of order. It had crushed everything beautiful and unique about each species it encountered and replaced it with obedience. When the recordings finally stopped, Vrexnal sat in silence for a long time. His hands were shaking. His hearts were beating too fast. Something inside him that had been solid for decades now felt cracked and broken. His door chimed. "Enter," he said, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears. Officer Kethra stepped inside, her face pale beneath her scales. "Commander, there is a situation in the lower decks." "What kind of situation?" "A group of officers is planning mutiny. They want to seize control of the ship and destroy the fleet, rather than surrender to the humans. They believe death is preferable to the humiliation we have experienced." Vrexnal stood slowly. "How many?" "Perhaps 200. They have gathered in the forward weapons bay. They are attempting to override the lockouts the humans have placed on our systems. They will fail. Yes, but they may damage the ship in the attempt. They may harm other crew members who try to stop them." Vrexnal walked to his door. "Come with me." They moved through the corridors of the Eternal Conquest, passing crew members who stood in small groups, talking quietly. trying to process what they had seen. Some looked lost. Some looked angry. Some simply looked broken. When Vrexnal reached the forward weapons bay, he found a barricade of storage containers blocking the entrance. Behind it, he could hear voices arguing, cursing, demanding action. "Open this barricade," Vrexnal commanded. "Commander, stay back," a voice shouted from inside. "We are taking control of this ship. We will not surrender to these human monsters." "They are not the monsters," Vrexnal said. "We are." Silence from behind the barricade. "I have served the Dominion for 40 years," Vrexnal continued. "I have conquered 12 worlds. I have ordered the deaths of millions. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself it was just. But I watched those recordings the same as you did. I saw what we really are. And I am tired of lying to myself." "The recordings were fake," someone shouted. "Human propaganda. They were from our own archives, our own cameras, our own records." "I recognize some of the officers in those recordings. I served with some of them. The humans did not need to invent anything. Our own history condemns us." Vrexnal stepped closer to the barricade. "You want to die fighting rather than face the truth. I understand that. Death is easier than admitting you have spent your life serving evil. But the humans are offering us something no one has ever offered the Dominion's victims. They are offering us a chance to change, a chance to become something better. I do not know if we deserve that chance. I do not know if we are capable of taking it. But I know that destroying ourselves is not courage. It is cowardice. It is running away from the hardest thing any of us will ever have to do." The barricade shifted. A panel moved aside, and a young officer stepped through. Vrexnal recognized him. Lieutenant Vrexnal, a promising tactical specialist. The young man's eyes were red, his scales dull with stress. "What do you expect us to do?" Vrexnal asked. "Just accept defeat? Just bow to these humans and do whatever they tell us? I expect us to listen, to think, to consider whether the empire we served deserves to continue as it is." Vrexnal met the young officer's eyes. "I expect us to be brave enough to face the truth, even when the truth is terrible." More officers emerged from behind the barricade. Some still looked angry. Some looked confused. But none of them were reaching for weapons anymore. "The humans want to give us a choice," Vrexnal said. "That is more than we ever gave anyone else. Perhaps it is time we learned what that means." The mutiny ended without violence. The officers dispersed, returning to their posts or their quarters, each carrying the weight of what they had seen and heard. The Dominion fleet remained frozen in space, held by power they could not fight, forced to confront truths they could not escape. Director Chen's hologram appeared on the bridge the next morning. "You stopped the mutiny," she said. "We were watching. We were prepared to intervene if necessary. But you handled it yourself. You knew it would happen," Vrexnal replied. "It was not a question. We knew some would refuse to accept what they saw. Denial is a powerful force. We were glad to see that enough of your people are willing to face reality. What happens now?" Director Chen studied him for a moment. "Now I give you the terms I promised. The Dominion will be dismantled. Every conquered species will be freed. Every enslaved population will be liberated. Your military will be disbanded. Your conquest ships decommissioned. The Kethral will return to your home system and rebuild your civilization from the beginning, this time without empire. And if we refuse, then we will do it ourselves, and your species will not survive the process. But we would rather you did it. We would rather you chose to end the Dominion rather than having it taken from you by force." Vrexnal was quiet for a long moment. "Why? Why does it matter to you whether we choose or not?" "Because we believe in choice, Commander. We believe that beings who choose to do good are worth more than beings who are forced to do good. We believe that redemption is possible, but only if it is chosen freely." Director Chen's expression softened slightly. "And because we have hope. Foolish, perhaps. Naive, certainly. But we have hope that your species can be better than what it has become. We want to give you the chance to prove us right." "Hope," Vrexnal repeated. "The Dominion crushed hope wherever it found it." "Yes. And now you have a chance to restore it. What do you say, Commander? Will you help us free the worlds your empire has enslaved? Will you help us undo the damage your people have done?" Vrexnal looked around his bridge. His crew was watching, waiting for his response. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something else. Something that might have been relief. Something that might have been the first stirring of hope. He thought of the recordings he had watched. The suffering his empire had caused. The lies he had told himself for 40 years. And he thought of Sirveth, the old alien who had warned them. Who had been right all along. Who had tried to give them a chance to be better. I want to see Sirveth, Vrexnal said. The one who warned us. Before I give you my answer, I want to speak with him. Director Chen nodded slowly. He has been waiting for this moment for a long time. I will arrange it. Her hologram faded, and Commander Vrexnal stood alone with his thoughts, preparing to face the last witness of his empire's arrogance, the one who had seen the trap before anyone else, the one who had tried to save them from themselves. 6 months had passed since the Dominion fleet arrived at Earth. 6 months since 500,000 soldiers learned that their entire worldview was built on lies. 6 months since everything changed. The planet was called Thessar Prime. Once it had been a beautiful world, covered in forests of purple-leafed trees and oceans that glowed at night with bioluminescent life. Now it was scarred. The Dominion had strip-mined its mountains, burned its forests for farmland, and worked its population nearly to extinction. This was where Vrexnal had earned his first medal. This was where his career as a conqueror had truly begun. Now he walked through a half-destroyed city, his silver uniform gone, replaced by simple workers' clothing. Beside him walked a Thessarian, a being with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with emotion. Her name was Kira Vess. 30 years ago, her family had been killed during the initial conquest. She had been taken as a child to serve in Dominion households. She had every reason to hate Vrexnal, every reason to want him dead. Instead, she worked beside him, clearing rubble from streets that had been choked with debris for decades. You are stronger than you look, Kira Vess said, watching Vrexnal lift a broken support beam and carry it to the collection pile. For a conqueror, former conqueror, Vrexnal corrected. I do not use that title anymore. Does changing what you call yourself change what you did? No, nothing can change that. Vrexnal set down the beam and wiped dust from his scales. But perhaps what I do now can mean something. Perhaps it can help, even a little. Kira Vess studied him with eyes that had seen too much suffering. The humans say you volunteered for this assignment. They say you asked to come to Thessar Prime specifically. I did. Why? This is the world you destroyed. These are the people you enslaved. Why would you choose to come here? Vrexnal was silent for a moment, looking out over the ruined city. In the distance, reconstruction machines provided by the humans were already rebuilding infrastructure. Thessarian workers were returning to their homeland from labor camps across the former empire. Ships carrying supplies and medical equipment arrived daily. Because I needed to see it, he finally said. I needed to see what I really did. Not from reports or recordings, but with my own eyes. I needed to walk through the destruction I caused and understand it in a way that I never did when I was the one causing it. And do you understand now? I understand that I can never truly make this right. I understand that no amount of work will bring back the dead or heal the wounds my people inflicted. But I also understand that doing nothing would be even worse. I cannot change the past. I can only try to build something better in the present. Kira Vess said nothing for a long time. Then she bent down, picked up a piece of debris, and handed it to Vrexnal. Then keep working, she said. We have a lot to rebuild. They worked together through the afternoon, former conqueror and former slave, building something neither could have imagined 6 months ago. That evening, a human ship landed at the reconstruction site's command center. Vrexnal was called from his work to meet the visitor. He found Director Chen waiting for him in a small office that had been set up in a repurposed Dominion military building. With her was a Kethrol he recognized immediately. Sirveth. The old alien looked different than he had in the council chamber. He stood straighter. His eyes were clearer. The weight of decades seemed to have lifted from his shoulders. Commander Vrexnal, Director Chen said. I promised you a conversation. Sirveth has something he wants to tell you. Vrexnal faced the alien who had tried to warn them. I should have listened to you. The entire council should have listened. Yes, Sirveth agreed. But you were not ready to hear. Neither was I when the humans first spoke to me. I do not understand. You said you were captured, that your crew died in an accident. My crew did die, but it was not an accident. Sirveth sat down heavily, his old joints protesting. When we entered the human solar system, we thought we were scouts discovering a primitive world. We were wrong. The humans detected us immediately. They disabled our ship and brought us to a facility on their moon. Vrexnal listened in silence as the old alien continued. They did not torture us. They did not threaten us. They simply talked to us. They showed us recordings of what the Dominion had done to other species. They explained what they were building, why they were building it, what they hoped to achieve. They gave us food, medical care, treatment for injuries, from the initial capture, and then they asked us what we wanted to do. What did you want to do? I wanted to die, Sirveth admitted. I wanted them to kill me, rather than live with what I had learned. My entire life had been dedicated to the Dominion. Everything I believed was based on the assumption that we were the good ones, the civilized ones, the ones bringing order to chaos. Learning the truth was like having my soul torn out. He looked up at Vrexnal with eyes that held deep understanding. But the humans would not let me give up. They showed me that there was another way. They offered me a chance to help them prepare for the day when the Dominion would come in force. They said that if I could not save my people, perhaps I could help give them a choice when the time came. You have been working with the humans for 40 years, Vrexnal said. You were never really damaged or unstable. I was both. The trauma was real. The psychological scars were real. But over time, with human help, I healed, and I used what I knew about the Dominion to help them prepare their trap. Sirveth smiled sadly. When I warned the council, I knew they would not listen, but I had to try. The humans insisted that we give your people every chance to make a different choice. Director Chen stepped forward. Sirveth has been one of our most valuable advisors. His knowledge of Dominion culture, military tactics, and political structures helped us design an approach that could actually work. He believed from the beginning that his species could change if given the opportunity. And now? Vrexnal asked. Do you still believe that? Sirveth stood and walked to the window, looking out at the reconstruction work continuing even as darkness fell. I believe what I see. I see former Dominion soldiers working beside the species they once enslaved. I see ships that once carried weapons now carrying food and medicine. I see the beginning of something that did not exist 6 months ago. He turned back to Vrexnal. But it is only a beginning. The work of rebuilding will take generations. There will be setbacks, failures, moments when old hatreds threaten to destroy everything. The Dominion trained our people for conquest, teaching them cooperation, empathy, respect for others. That is a much harder task. Why did the humans not simply destroy us? Vrexnal asked. It would have been easier, safer. Why take this risk? Director Chen answered. Because we believe that destruction is almost never the only option. Because we spent 200 years preparing for this moment. And we decided that we would not become the very thing we were defending against. Because we think the galaxy can be better than it has been. And that requires giving people chances to be better, even when they do not deserve it. She walked to stand beside Sirveth at the window. Tomorrow, the first free elections will be held on Thessar Prime. A species that has been enslaved for decades will choose their own leaders for the first time in living memory. Similar elections are happening across dozens of worlds. The Dominion's victims are taking control of their own futures. And my people? Vrexnal asked. Your people are learning. Some faster than others. Some may never accept the changes. But enough of you are trying, truly trying, to build something new. That is all we ever hoped for. Vrexnal stood in silence, processing everything he had heard. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind for months. Why mercy? You had the power to punish us for everything we did. You could have made us suffer the way we made others suffer. Why choose this instead? Director Chen smiled. Because mercy is not weakness, Commander. It is strength. It is the strength to choose a better path when an easier path is available. It is the strength to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than wound, to hope rather than despair. She paused. We built our trap because we had to, but we designed it to catch, not to kill. We wanted to prove that power does not have to mean cruelty. We wanted to show that humanity could be strong without being monsters. You wanted to be better than us. We wanted to be better than the galaxy expected us to be. We wanted to be better than fear would have made us. We wanted to prove that the universe does not have to be ruled by the strongest and most ruthless. Director Chen met his eyes. We wanted to give you a chance to prove the same thing about yourselves. Vrex now looked out the window at the reconstruction work below. Former soldiers and former slaves working together. Buildings rising from ruins. A world being reborn from the ashes of conquest. Ask me in 100 years if this was worth it, he said quietly. Director Chen nodded. I will. And I hope the answer will be yes. She and Sirveth left the office, leaving Vrexenal alone with his thoughts. Outside, the stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. The same stars that had once been symbols of conquest and expansion. The same stars that the Dominion had reached toward with weapons and chains. Now they meant something different. They meant worlds being freed, species being healed, a galaxy slowly, painfully, learning to be better than it had been. Vrexenal did not know if his people deserved this chance. He did not know if they would succeed in becoming something other than conquerors. He did not know if the damage they had done could ever truly be repaired, but he knew that he would spend the rest of his life trying. Not because he deserved redemption, not because working hard enough could erase the past, but because a species he had come to destroy had taught him something he had never learned from the Dominion. Hope. Simple, fragile, stubborn hope. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to begin. In the reconstruction camp below, a Kethral worker handed a tool to a Thessarian beside him. The Thessarian took it, nodded once, and together they continued building. It was small. It was slow. It was only the very beginning, but it was real. And for the first time in 300 years of conquest, the former masters of the Dominion were learning what it meant to build something instead of destroy it. The trap had caught them, but it had not killed them. It had set them free.